My name is Amy Brown Curtis, and we are here to discuss a growing epidemic that is turning into a number one priority for today's businesses: workplace violence. Workplace violence is violence or the threat of violence against workers. It can occur at or outside the workplace and can range from threats and verbal abuse to physical assault and homicide. Homicide is one of the leading causes of job-related deaths. However it manifests itself, workplace violence is a growing concern nationwide for both employers and employees. Over 2 million American workers are victims of workplace violence each year. Workplace violence can strike anywhere, and no one is immune. According to the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, violence in the workplace is turning into a number one priority for today's businesses. On an average working day, 3 people are murdered in the U.S. every day. Every year, 1 million workers are assaulted and more than 1,000 are murdered every year. This translates into 3 cases of workplace violence for every 10,000 workers. This is confirmed by the U.S. Department of Labor. An estimated 2 million workers are assaulted every year, and more than 2,000 people are murdered. Who is the greater risk of workplace violence? No one is exempt from workplace violence. It can happen anywhere. Anyone in a job that involves extensive contact with the public is especially vulnerable. Also vulnerable are those working in organizations where limited attention is paid to employee satisfaction. In this context, supervisors and managers are particularly at risk. Employee boss murders have doubled during the past 10 years. Why do people resort to workplace violence? Violence is an example of what is termed functional behavior. This simply means that this is an action used by an individual to get what they want. They may want faster or better service. They may desire attention, or they simply may be wanting to be left alone. Whatever the reason, the individual using this functional behavior feels that violence is the only way that they can express themselves or control others. There are 4 types of workplace violence. Workplace violence is described as murder, shaking of fists, throwing objects, or other physical acts, written or verbal, that cause harm to someone else. As I stated before, there are 4 types of workplace violence. Type 1, criminal violence, is when the perpetrator has no legitimate relationship to the business or its employees. This is violence that is usually committed while a crime is being committed while in the business. This is usually a robbery, shoplifting, or trespassing. The vast majority of workplace violence, 85%, falls in this category. Type 2 is server-user violence. This is when the perpetrator has a legitimate relationship with the business and becomes violent while being served by the business. It is believed that a large portion of customer-client incidences occur in the healthcare industry. This type of aggressor accounts for 3% of all workplace violences. The third type of violence is worker-on-worker violence. This is when the perpetrator is an employee or past employee of the business who attacks or threatens another employee. Worker-on-worker fatalities account for approximately 7% of all workplace homicides. And the last type of workplace violence, type 4, is domestic violence. This is when the perpetrator has absolutely no relationship with the business other than a personal relationship with the intended victim. This category includes victims of domestic violence who are assaulted or threatened while at work. This type of aggressor accounts for approximately 5% of all workplace homicides. Can a potential aggressor be identified? Yes, they can. In fact, 99% of workplace violence perpetrators exhibit clear warning signs before resorting to violence. Some of the warning signs include violent and threatening behavior, or just strange behavior. They either exhibit emotional or performance problems while on the job. In addition to warning signs, some events that trigger potential violent reactions are being fired from a job, being laid off from a job, or even just being passed over for a promotion or poor performance evaluations. Experts agree that the warning signs and triggering events are many, but there are some instances where violent outbursts is unexpected. The important thing is to be observant and report any suspicions of potential violence to the appropriate authorities. Eliminating violence in the workplace should be a top priority for every executive, manager, and team leader. Organizations that haven't experienced workplace violence should be aware of this growing epidemic, and rather than doing nothing or waiting until a serious act of aggression occurs, they should be proactive. By taking proactive steps, businesses can become better equipped to recognize and respond to workplace violence and protect their employees. In conclusion, a growing wave of workplace violence is sweeping the nation. 1 in 4 workers are attacked, threatened, or harassed each year, costing $13.5 billion in medical costs per year. 500,000 employees miss 1.7 million days per year, and employees diagnosed with stress-related illnesses have increased by 41% in the past 10 years. Anyone can replace violence. Small companies or large corporations, schools, airlines, post offices, and as we recently learned, even military bases. No organization can afford to look the other way. It will take the coordinated effort of employers, legislations, and individual commitment combined with sociological research to make a difference. In the meantime, it is up to each employee to educate and prepare themselves in order to prevent violence in the workplace. Thank you for listening.